The Universal Church of Rome got together at Nicaea and decided what was and wasn't true. They said that God the Father of Jesus was Yahweh from the Old Testament. But not everybody thought that it was. And I just want to present what Jesus said and did and what Yahweh said and did so that you guys can look this up, see if it makes sense or not. Let's start off with a little true or false. So, true or false? Jesus commanded that you sacrifice all of your firstborn males unto him for the rest of time so that everybody remembers his awesome power, with a couple of provisions where you can ransom back your son by paying a couple priests. Or how about this one? Jesus put it into the heart of a king to transgress against him so that he could punish a whole nation with his righteous vengeance and unlife 70,000 people. True or false? Jesus said you are to worship him and make the appropriate sacrifices at all times, or he will send curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you put your hand to. He will plague you with diseases. He will strike you with wasting disease and fever and inflammation, with scorching heat and drought. The sky above will be as bronze and the ground as iron, because he won't let it rain in your country. Jesus will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. Your carcasses will be food for all the birds and the wild animals, and there will be no one to frighten them away. You'll be pledged to marry a woman, but another will take her and, yeah, her. So, true or false? Did Jesus say those things? I'm going to go with no, false. But every Christian preacher out there, and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody, will tell you that that's true. If you believe that Jesus is of the Father, one and the same, and that Yahweh of the Old Testament is the same Father that Jesus talks about, then you're saying that Jesus said all of those things, because that's what Yahweh said in the Old Testament. If Yahweh is the Father and Jesus is the Father, then Jesus is Yahweh. The case that everybody tries to reconcile with is by saying, well, that was the old times and things changed. Well, 1,000 years to God is a blink of an eye, and I don't think he changed that much. Malachi 3:6, last book of the Old Testament, which, by the way, some people just use the first 5 books of the Old Testament because they are dealing directly with Yahweh. I, Yahweh, do not change, so you, the descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed. Hebrews 13:8, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. I think by any interpretation of the text, you can see that the acts of God in the Old Testament and New are completely different. What are the miracles that Jesus performed? He healed the sick. He cured the blind. He cast out evil spirits. What are the miracles of Yahweh? He turned a staff into a snake. He turned the rivers into blood. He brought insects and frogs and locusts. And instead of just putting it into Pharaoh's heart to let the Hebrews go, he hardened his heart so that he could punish the whole nation. And then he topped it all off by eliminating every firstborn in Egypt. And when he came to do this, he had all of the Hebrews paint the door with lamb's blood, so he knew to spare those households. So the true God that knows the number of hairs on your head needs a sign on the door to know whether you're one of his or not. So I've used this passage in the last couple videos, but there's a lot more like this that we'll get into. But Jesus is speaking to the children of Abraham. It says that just before this, it says, "Ye are of your father the devil, the lusts of your father you will do." When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own because he's the father of lies. So they go back and forth a little bit. It's kind of an insulting thing to say you're of the devil. And Jesus says, "It's my Father that honors me, of whom you say that he is your God, but you have not known him." So Jesus knows exactly what God they worship,